Hello.
Hello.
Long time no see. It's been like what? It's 2 weeks since our last Writers to Watch.
It wasn't that long, but
What was
it came
that?
it came up fast, but I'm excited. We got a killer schedule these days, so it's great.
Killer schedule.
Killer
Color.
schedule.
Kind of the perfect word to use for this lineup of authors we have today.
It's true.
Hi, everyone. Are we live?
We are
We are
live.
live indeed.
Hi. Hi. Welcome back to another episode of Writers to Watch. I'm Virginia Stanley,
Lainey Mays.
And I'm Grace Caternolo.
and we are the library marketing team at HarperCollins Publishers, otherwise known as Library Love Fest. And we're glad you're here. So we have four wonderful authors who are going to talk to us tonight about their forthcoming publications. We just had a really nice conversation with all of them, so we can't wait for you to meet them. But before we do that, we're going to do a little housekeeping, right? So you want to show some slides, talk
Yeah,
about some stuff?
I do. So these are our
Okay,
like covers for today, which I don't know how we did it, but they're like really cool covers, and I don't know. We just like did that without trying. So we are, am I talking about this, Virginia, or do you want?
sure.
Okay.
You go right ahead.
So writers to watch, you know it because you're here, but if you're watching later, we do this every month and we have always done it virtually. I think we're in our second year, maybe. I have to double check that. I think second year. And we've done it every month and it's been super fun. We've never done it live, and so we're taking the show on the road a little. We're going to be at ALA, the American Library Association conference, this month at the end of the month, and we're going to be on stage with three authors live on stage. And you can come. It's a little bit for everyone. It's some genre stuff. It's some romance. Some horror. It's some like paranormal, and come here and we're going to give books away. You can come back to the booth and get them signed as well. So Diane McKinney-Whetstone, Lori Gilmore, which you've probably seen a lot of places these days. She's got a fun series, and Vincent Torrado. So come by 1:30 to 2:20 on Saturday, June 28th. Can't wait to see you there. And for those who aren't going to ALA, don't you worry. We're taking July off because it's the summer and everyone has lots of things to do, but we'll be back in August. And this is kind of an insane lineup too. We have Mitch Albom and Catherine Newman and Akwaeke Emezi for a little romantasy, and of course you'll have Jillian McMillan for some mystery with a library in the title. I we've outdone ourselves again. I feel like every month we say that, but we're so excited. We have an embarrassment of riches of great books to talk about at Writers to Watch, and we're so glad you're here once a month. Join us on Crowdcast and Facebook. And stay tuned because September's in the works and it will be ready soon.
And also Galley Gab Fest.
Yes. Do a
Next
drum roll or
Wednesday.
just show them.
Show
Uh,
them.
Speaking of an embarrassment of riches,
Take it away, Lainey.
Philippa Gregory, I've heard of her, wrote a few books about the Boleyns. So back with a Boleyn book called The Boleyn Trader, and we are having Philippa Gregory on a very special Galley Fest episode. So Galley Fest is our other monthly show that's, just things that are coming up or exciting titles we don't want you to miss out on. Sometimes it's us talking, sometimes it's authors. And this episode on June 11th at 2 p.m. is super fun because we have Philippa Gregory coming virtually and you can hear from her, but also half the episode is going to be a little behind the scenes in audiobooks. So we have a creative director in the audio department at HarperCollins going to tell us all about audiobooks. And I mean, Virginia and I were just speaking to her on the phone and we were so excited and just so fascinated by the process and how what narrator she loves. And so I think that excitement's really going to come through on this, and you're going to learn a lot, but you're also going to learn about audiobooks coming up that you can't miss. So it's going to be a super special episode, and that's on June 11th. So next week.
Yeah. That's gonna be great. Don't miss it. If you're even remotely interested in audio, or even if you're not interested in audio, don't listen to audiobooks. Honestly, Suzanne Mitchell, the creative director, she is she just had us spellbound, truly. Lainey and I didn't know this, we were both writing down notes about all these different audios that she, loves, and how she talked about how she missed her. She ended up in the train yard because she was on a subway or I don't know, on the MTA, some sort of train. And they said, and she was just listening to this audio and just lost in it. So just fascinating. So anyway, so that's June 11th,
Yeah. 2
right?
p.m. ET.
2 p.m. ET. Okay, let us start. Thank you, Lainey. That was wonderful. A wonderful.
You.
And now let us start with the lovely Sam Rebelein. Sam Rebelein, are you there? Can you put on your
Hello,
camera?
I'm here. It's me.
Hello.
I made it. Hello.
Yay. How are you?
Yay. I'm really good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. I'm happy to see you.
Yeah,
Woo!
that's my dog. He's happy here too.
Good.
Um, um,
Um, that's great. We love authors. We forgot to tell you, if you have animals, bring them on. We had an author bring a horse on once, and it was so much fun.
oh gosh,
Um,
how fun.
yeah. So, one more thing I do want to say, side note about ALA. If you're going, go to librarylovefest.com, and all of our shenanigans is pinned to the top. I forgot to mention that. Anyway, back to you, Sam. So Sam, you and I met you and Lainey and I met in 2023.
Yeah, December 2023. Feels so long ago now.
Feels so long ago. Sam had driven from Poughkeepsie, New York to Toledo to participate in a multi-author program at the Toledo Public Library. And it was just so wonderful. And we never forgot. I mean, you just left a standing impression on us as such a wonderful writer, yes, but also just a lovely human. And it's just so nice to see you, if only virtually, again.
Oh, thanks. Well, same. This is fun to be here.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a brief intro about you, and then I'm going to ask you to talk about your forthcoming book. How's that?
Excellent. That
Okay.
sounds great.
Okay. Sam Rebelein is the Bram Stoker Award nominated author of Edenville and the short story collection The Poorly Made and Other Things. He holds an MFA in creative writing from Goddard College with a focus on memoir and short fiction. His work has appeared in Pseudopod, Bourbon Pen, Gamut, The Deadlands, Ellen Detlow's The Best Horror of the Year, and elsewhere. Edenville also received a Wonderland Book Award for Best Novel. And it also, and Poorly Made and Other Things received a starred review from LJ, and I love this. It said, taken on its own, each tale is horror perfection as dread seeps in slowly until it explodes, and readers are left in breathlessly horrifying awe. A stellar collection. I love that. Your forthcoming book, Galloway's Gospel, which comes out in September, takes readers back to Renfield County, where you introduced readers to your readers to Edenville, and you tell the story now of these two Rachels, who are one who mistakenly starts a cult at her local high school, and one who tries to dismantle it 10 years later. Yeah. That's a lot. You've done a lot of scary stuff.
Yeah, but I feel like, because I always sort of giggle my way through my own bio, and I'm also the kind of person during a horror movie when something like really particularly creepy happens, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the good stuff. So I feel like there's something about horror as an outlet that allows you to, in some ways, feel like a saner person. Like you're just getting the yuckiness out onto the page, or if you're watching a horror movie, you're getting it out that way. Like there's something about the horror genre that just like it helps me breathe a little bit, because it's a horrific time in many ways, and so we need those outlets where you're just like, yeah, how can I get this out in a safe and productive way? So,
Right.
but yeah, go ahead.
No, we'll talk about your book, and then we'll hear from the other authors, and we'll come back. But I would like to talk, and Grace or Lainey, you'll be showing some of the images that Sam sent ahead of time And I want you to talk about those because they're, if you can sort of explain them, but also talk about sort of the connections between this book and the other Renfield County books. Like, where did the idea for this one come from? And just, how do they all string together? And if you can, we can show the images and maybe you can talk about them.
Yeah, well, let's do the first one because that's a great place to start. We got Rip Van Winkle here, and this is one of those sort of classic images of this tale by Washington Irving. And I grew up in the Hudson Valley, which is Washington Irving land. I'm an hour away from Sleepy Hollow. I'm right by the Catterskull Mountains, which is where Rip Van Winkle famously fell asleep for, I think, 20 years it was. And there's just something about the air itself in the Hudson Valley that feels kind of mythic. Even Henry Hudson himself went mysteriously missing and was never seen again after his crew mutinied. And we're like, we're done exploring the Hudson Bay, and put him on a rowboat, and he was never seen again. And so even in the name itself, there's a little bit of mystery. I moved to the Hudson Valley when I was about 7 years old, and I'm in my early 30s, so I was very into Goosebumps at that time. And it feels like Goosebumps is kind of in the air again. Like a lot of people who are at a similar age and place in their life as me are like, oh yeah, Goosebumps. Like I just want to go back to those kinds of stories. They're kind of cozy and they're kind of creepy, and so I wanted a world that felt as mythic as the Hudson Valley and kind of like kooky and fun as the stories that I loved as a kid, like Goosebumps, movies like Men in Black, Jurassic Park has some really great scares, but also a great sense of heart and humor. And so those are the stories that I wanted to foster in this world. So Renfield County is all like spooky upstate New York, but the murder that really inspired this world is the case of Charlie Lawson. I don't know how many people know this guy, but the next slide is actually the famous picture of the Lawsons. So here they are. We've got Charlie Lawson is the third from the left. He's in the tie, and I guess they're all wearing ties, but he's the most haunted looking dude for reasons that we still do not understand. On Christmas morning, 1929, Charlie Lawson killed his entire family, everyone that we see here. The only one that he spared was his son. I think his name was Arthur, who's on the far left there. The detail that really fascinates me about this case is not just that we don't know why he did it, and family annihilators I think are kind of fascinating as well for anyone who saw the most recent season of White Lotus, right? But it was so cold in the house that all the blood froze along the floor, and when the neighbors were cleaning up the house, they were chipping up these big sheets of frozen blood and buried them in the backyard. And I first heard about this story on the podcast My Favorite Murder, where they were kind of joking around about the murder, and they were joking about like, ooh, a black rose grows out of the blood in the backyard. And so I was like, well, that's interesting. What would grow out of the ground if you bury a bunch of like cursed, like mysterious, angry blood back there? You know what I mean? So that idea of a cursed land and this kind of mythic Hudson Valley place, those ideas kind of congealed to form Renfield County. And I've been working on this world for a few years. We go to the next slide. This was on the right, you can see a map, like a very early map that I drew, like roads and little towns and rivers and mountains and stuff. This was January 2019. So it's been a long time that I've been thinking about this place. And kind of trying to map it to Dutchess County, where I live. Like, okay, this fictional town kind of correlates to this real life town, things like that. And over time, it grew into the map on the left, which is the one that is now in the front of all the Renfield County books: Edenville, Poorly Made, Galloway's Gospel. And I did not do the one on the left. I cannot draw that one. That was forgetting her name, Leah something at HarperCollins did that map and did a beautiful job. You can read the books in any order. It's not a series. It's a world. There are Easter eggs going every which way. When Poorly Made came out, it was really fun to see people read Poorly Made and then go back to Edenville and be like, oh my gosh. And you can do the same thing with Galloway's Gospel. You can start with Galloway's Gospel and then go back to the other two books if you want. The main character in The Poorly Made is also the hero of Galloway's Gospel. And so in many ways, Galloway's Gospel feels like an important and special book to me because I wrote Poorly Made at kind of a dark time of my life. I was dealing with a lot of depression and various other things going on. So the stories kind of came out of that darkness. I mean, talk about an outlet. And so to see her then grow into a character who really becomes like a superhero and a badass in Galloway's Gospel made me feel like, okay, I'm kind of coming out of that darkness myself. And so it feels like a very special book to put out there. But it's all about cults. When I think every time we talk about cults, we're talking about who gets to control certain narratives, which is certainly something that we're talking a lot about these days, suffice it to say, who gets to control stories and what stories survive. And on top of that, we've got all kinds of fun creatures and weird monsters and things like that, including these weird little creatures called the poo pigs. And the poo pigs, if you feed them a part of yourself and make a wish for a certain kind of plant, you can wish for anything, their poop is like magical fertilizer. Whatever you wish for will grow out of that poop. And this is sort of the goofy thing that our high schooler Rachel is thinking about while she's bored in class, which is certainly the kind of thing that I would think about when I was bored in class back in 2009, you know?
Right.
Like, history class feels like it's forever. Like, ugh. So this is one of the creatures that sort of shows up
That
in
comes
the book. And what's
comes
up?
from her. That comes from her imagination.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
comes from her imagination, but in real life, it's much creepier than
Yeah.
she imagined it. So.
Okay. So, well, I think we have just enough because more is going to come out when we come back with more questions. But Rachel is a very interesting character, in the book. And the quick pitch for this book is Adult Goosebumps meets Grady Hendrix, because there's humor in this too. So, I'm gonna pause right there and come back when we're all done. But if this hasn't wet your whistle to dive into this book, and as you said, Sam said, you don't have to read them in any kind of an order, but they've got this connective tissue between all of them, and it's really just wonderful writing and great reading, great fun. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to hand it off to Grace.
Yeah. Hi, I'm really excited to welcome Jade Chang.
Hi, Grace. Thanks for
Oh,
having me.
thanks
Also,
for-
I'm sold. Sam, I'm going to read that book. I'm scared already, but I'll read it. I'm excited. Yeah.
I am so excited to welcome you here. You've written such a fantastic book with probably maybe one of my favorite main characters ever.
You.
So thank you so much. And I'm gonna read a quick bio for you before I let you jump into telling us about the book. So Jade Chang's debut novel, The Wangs vs. the World, won the VCU Cabell First Novelist Award and has been published in 12 countries. Her journalism and essays have recently appeared in the Best American Food Writing and in the New York Times and Los Angeles Times magazines. She also writes for TV and film, and she lives in Los Angeles. So thank you again for being here and for matching with me and Virginia and Joan, who's not on screen yet.
Right.
But
Be sure it's forever.
we all
Yeah.
called each other up and planned this out. So thank
The only
you
way to do
for
it.
being here. And without further ado, tell everyone about What a Time to Be Alive.
Yeah, well, in some ways, I have been writing this book for over 20 years because when I was just out of college, I was teaching English in Japan, and I thought, I'm gonna write a novel. I'm an adult now. I'm done with school. I'm gonna be a novelist. And I had a notebook and a pen, and I started writing this book about a girl who kind of semi-accidentally becomes a sort of culty self-help guru. So no wonder Sam's book appeals to me. But back then, I had kind of almost a whole notebook filled up, and then I lost it in a Tokyo municipal building. And it was, the source of great despair. There was some moment where I thought, all right, that's it. I'm never going to write another book, or I'm never going to write a book at all. But then, of course, I did, thank God. Um, and so this book, the main character is Lola Treasure Gold. And the book really goes through, I would say, an extraordinary year in her life. So, I'm trying to think of the most economical way to tell you this. It starts at a funeral. It opens with the funeral of her best friend, who she was kind of half in love with, and he died in a really absurd kind of way. And in the aftermath of that, Lola kind of accidentally becomes part of this video that goes viral with footage of her friend's death and then footage of her talking as if she's a guru, speaking to her many followers. And the people of the internet take it seriously. And they kind of start to follow her. And because she doesn't really know what else to do with herself or with her life, she's like, all right, let me try this. Like, let me try to make this real. And so she really goes, I would say she goes deep into the world of self-help gurudom. And, I feel like whenever there is a kind of book about a cult leader or someone like that, we never see it from the perspective of the leader. And we never see it from like the beginning. And I really wanted to, and I wouldn't say she's a cult leader exactly, but she really is, definite self-help guru. And I really wanted to kind of show it from the beginning. And I wanted to kind of show how that rise happens. And, I've been fascinated with these worlds ever since in the same span of a few months, I went to TED and then I went to Oprah Super Soul Sunday. And I realized that these tech gurus and these wellness gurus were just all spinning the same, like, semi-benevolent con, or sometimes very nefarious con, but it's just all versions of the same con, right? So so we see, like, throughout the book, we see Lola, we see her grow her following. She sneaks into TED, she goes to Esalen, she runs around LA and kind of the music scene there. And there's also, that whole time, the loss of her friend has also really raised this old wound, right? Her mother, came to America when she was pregnant with Lola, and she was fleeing China's one-child policy. And then she gets deported when Lola's 8 years old. And sometime around junior high, her calls stop. So basically, we're with Lola through this year, wondering if she can get it together, wondering if she'll ever find her mother, wondering if she'll ever let herself have a little bit of romance, and if she can go through just all this grief and really still love the world. I mean, I feel like that is kind of the central point of wonder in this book. And I would say even though I was so devastated that I lost that notebook, when I was finishing this book, I really thought like, honestly, thank God, having lived 20 plus more years, I just have such a different and I think more generous view of the world and of humanity. And I feel kind of relieved that I wrote it from this perspective instead of from the perspective of a very young Jade. Yeah.
I love that. I love the story of losing the notebook, although I'm sure at the time that probably felt like getting your heart ripped out of your chest. But
I was so sad. I went back to that office building so many times, and finally the guy, and I didn't really speak Japanese, so I just had to like speak to them with a dictionary. And then finally they were like, don't come back. We don't have it. And I was like,
oh my
okay,
God, it's
bye.
awful to think it either probably got like thrown out or somebody else found this really great like notebook of ideas, but they didn't write the book, so it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much. Before I say bye to you to pass off to
Mhm.
Lainey, I did want to read this quote that we have from Rufi Thorpe, the author of Margot's Got Money Troubles.
Oh,
He says, a generous satire of the spiritual wellness space that delivers true magic in the character of Lola Treasure Gold, a heroine so dazzling and bold and psychologically healthy that you will wind up rooting for her with your whole heart. I loved it. So I just wanted to read that great quote.
yeah.
And thank you so much, Jade. I will see you in a bit, and I'm going to pass it off to Lainey.
Thanks.
Hello. Okay, Kosoko, come on down. Turn the camera on, and then we'll get going. Hi.
Hello, hello. Is today Tuesday? I don't know what that is today.
I think it is. It took me a
Happy,
minute.
happy Tuesday.
That tells you how the week's gone, huh? Thank you. Thank you for being here. We're so excited to hear more about the macabre. I'm gonna do an intro and then I'm gonna let you talk. Kosoko Jackson is the Lambda Literary Award-winning author of the USA Today bestseller, The Forest Demands Its Due. When not writing, he's trying to watch 100 movies a year. I want to know what that list is, but we can get to that later. Working on his MBA homework or juggling teaching responsibilities. He lives in New Jersey with his golden retriever, Artemis. How sweet. And I'm so excited to hear more about this book from you. I was gonna say it's thrilling and the story really sucks you in, but I'll let you tell more of that might be a little too literal, so I'll let you tell more of the story. But before, I just wanted to quickly highlight this great library journal quote. It says an action-forward narrative punctuated with exposition and leaps of intuition that keep the plot racing, careening towards a cinematic ending. Lewis and his handler Noah flit around the globe, having clashes with extremely appealing, morally gray characters, even as their own attraction grows. So I'll leave that to you to tell us more about the macabre coming in.
Sure. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Like I said, I'm Kosoko Jackson. The macabre has been a work in progress. I like to say for 2.5, 3 years. I started coming up with this idea in like 2022, and we sold it in 2023. But I would honestly say it goes back all the way to when I was about 12 or 13 years old. My mother. I grew up in St. Mary's County. For any people who like know Maryland, it is very rural. Like we say, it's bumblefuck Maryland. I'm an hour and a half from DC. And my mother was very clear about one thing. She was like, as a Black African American man, it is key that you like know culture. So we traveled somewhere every summer, be it domestic or international. And one of our first international trips was to London. And there we went to the British Museum. And I was obsessed with the British Museum, not only the architecture of it, but just the history behind it. I also come from a really social justice heavy family. My mother was a Black Panther back in the days. My grandmother's home was a location for Students Against Nonviolence. If you know the Civil Rights era, it's one of the locations that did a lot of nonviolent revolutionary work for the Civil Rights era. My mom marched with Martin Luther King. And so this intersection between art and seeing how the British talk about art, and then knowing the history behind the theft of Brits and art throughout the world has always stuck with me, especially as a writer who writes diverse and queer work. I've been always very interested in history about who gets to tell the story and how history is rewritten by the victors. So Macabre is kind of like a whole culmination of that. It follows Lewis Dixon, who is a struggling African American artist. He graduated from SCAD from Georgia and is just not able to make ends meet. His art is not selling. His mother recently passed away, and then he gets an offer. Randomly out of the blue, the British Museum invites him to represent the United States in their previous colonies of Britain art show, where every single colony has a representative representing their colony's art. And so he's pretty excited. It's going to be a great way to get his work out there. He's never had a win recently. But when he gets there, he learns it's kind of another opportunity. He's taken into this magical room where there's a floating painting, and he is told that his ancestor, his great great grandfather, was a painter, the first in his bloodline, with a magical ability to make these 10 macabre paintings, each one a dark, horrific painting with a dark, horrific ability connected to a traumatic moment in his life. And the British Museum wants Lewis, because of his ancestor, has the ability to tap into these paintings, actually go inside the painting, and figure out how to effectively shut down the painting. Think of it like an artistic heist throughout time. And he agrees to it. It's a great opportunity. He's going to get something out of it. He also gets to work with this handsome British Indian agent who works for the British Museum's magical department. And it's a globe-trotting adventure across the world. The countries span every single continent except for Antarctica, while at the same time they are hunting for these pieces of art. There are other organizations, other cultures, other countries' magical departments that are also hunting for them. And then also tied back to when his ancestor existed, there is an immortal nun who is hunting for these paintings at the exact same time, a kind of cat and mouse game for a reason that is unbeknownst to Lewis. And I love this book. It's my foray into adult horror, into, I would say, a more serious genre. Many of you might know I write YA, I've written adult rom-coms, but this really allowed me to talk about who gets to write history, the effects of colonialism. One of the big areas, which isn't really a spoiler since it's part 3 of the book, is they go to Japan, and there's a big interaction between how England has really screwed up Asia and the effects that it's had on Japanese and also on Asian culture. And it's not a light story. It really touches on colonialism, who gets to rewrite history, racism, and themes of art and who gets to tell art, the struggling artists, and the expectations that we have on artists. And as such, we have this beautiful cover, which is one of the macabre paintings. It's actually the first painting in the book that you are revealed to. The cover itself is actually a scene from the book. Not only is this the painting, but the scene where he walks in is a stark white room with this painting dripping blood and hovering in the center of the room, which was huge inspiration for the cover. It's kind of what got the whole artistic theme discussed. Additionally, there's a special edition of this book, which is a beautiful special edition. It has red deckled edges, as you can see. Some of the paintings are illustrated inside the end caps and the front of the book, and also the cover is a reversible cover. So you can paint your own painting or color it however you want to kind of follow along with the theme of the story.
Oh my goodness, that was perfect. And so like put it all, there's a lot to unravel in this story, and they go like quite literally across the world. So there's a lot to put in there, and you did it so succinctly and so
Thank you.
beautifully. But I am so glad we showed the reversible jacket, because I think it goes perfectly with what you're saying of these themes of like who gets to paint the story, who gets to tell the story. And I'm sure people are thinking, if you have to choose to go into painting, that one would be very scary to choose to go into. But it's really great. It sets the scene for that first moment in that stark white room, the contrast. So I'm so glad you pointed that out too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll bring you back in just a minute and talk some more, but we're gonna take a little break and talk to, or a little, not a break, a switch up, and bring our last but not least author on. Hi, Joan.
Hi, Lainey. I'm so
Hey,
excited.
thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Exciting.
I'm so thrilled to be able to talk a little about A Killer Wedding.
Yeah, is it kind of one of the first times you're talking about the book, or
This
okay,
is the very first time, so everyone bear with
really?
me.
No, it's gonna be great. We sometimes say like whatever comes out is just perfect. Like you're kind of working through some thoughts in your head, but like it'll be great, because that's the crux of what you want people to know. So I'm gonna do a
Well, it's
quick
good. I just got
intro.
a master class from all the authors before, so that was awesome.
Everyone. So great, and you're gonna be great too. So I'm gonna do an intro, and then I'm gonna hand it off to you, okay?
Great.
So, okay, Joan O'Leary was a producer at the Tonight Show, which we might see, that's a little foreshadowing, and studied English and creative writing at the University of San Diego. She's recently taken an NYC sabbatical and currently lives in Abu Dhabi with her husband, who, yes, she did marry in an Irish castle, but the similarities to the story end here. And I think that's a perfect setup. I just want to say quickly, you're getting so many fantastic quotes for your debut novel. So
Thank you.
congratulations on writing a novel, but all of the love you're getting. And I'm gonna hand it off to you. You have some great photos, so just tell me when to go to the next one.
Great, perfect. So thank you for that wonderful introduction, Lainey. I'll start off by reiterating, I was a producer at The Tonight Show. I have a little picture here of my time there up until very recently. And so my comedic background definitely plays a big part in A Killer Wedding. It is a funny mystery, or that was the intention, definitely more of a cozy kind of Knives Out, White Lotus vibe. So that's one sort of pillar of what inspired the wedding. Was all my Killer Wedding was all my time spent at the show. I actually started writing it during COVID, so quite a long time ago, and it was my COVID creative project. The show went dark. as everyone knows, everything went dark during that time. And I found myself leaving my new exciting New York City life to move back in with my parents, leave not at my dream job, not knowing when it was ever coming back, and kind of was forced in that moment to be like, well, if you want to write this book, there's literally never going to be a better time. You're never going to be trapped in the house. At this point, you can't even go outside. You can't see your friends. You can't do anything. So it might be a good time to try your hand at this whole author business. So I wrote the first draft of A Killer Wedding during COVID as an escape. At the time, I was also trying to plan my wedding in Ireland, which obviously wasn't happening for very obvious reasons. So I had wedding planning on the brain, I had comedy writing on the brain, and those kind of threads were the beginning of the novel. And like most authors, I'm sure can relate to, I wrote this draft of the book. I thought it was, whatever. I put it in a drawer. And then a few years later, the writer's strike happened, and I found myself out of work as a producer once again. And I thought, well, maybe I'll take this back out and tinker with it. And I actually ended up, signing with my agent right before the show came out. So it all felt very serendipitous. But yeah, so that's just a little bit about the background, what inspired it. And then I will kind of dive into the book a little before I share some of my own wedding pictures, which inspired the setting of the novel. So A Killer Wedding follows Christine, who is a reporter for Bespoke magazine, which in the Killer Wedding universe is kind of like Vogue. And she's so excited. She got this amazing kind of career making scoop by being hand selected by Gloria Beaufort, who in my world is kind of like the Estee Lauder queen bee of the fashion and beauty industry, to cover Gloria's grandson's wedding at a castle in Ireland. And this is a dream opportunity for her, and she's so excited to just kind of revel in the glamour of it all and hopefully get a really big spread at her magazine. But of course, everything goes off the rails when she arrives at the wedding venue, and Gloria is found dead the morning of the rehearsal dinner. And Christine is looking around kind of at all of her heirs and family members and friends, and there are a bevy of suspects, and everyone has a reason to want the matriarch gone and out of their lives. So it's definitely a classic locked room whodunit. I got a very generous comparison to Agatha Christie. I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan, so I love a locked room kind of story. And hopefully this one has some fun comedy and some fun fashion and all sorts of other things that I'm interested in it. And yeah, I'll show a couple of those pictures now, Lainey, just quickly. Always looking for an excuse to show more pictures for my wedding. So this book will provide that for the rest of my life, I guess. But so it was kind of inspired by Rebelein Castle, where I did end up getting married many years later after 3 canceled wedding dates. And then the next one, I think, is the bar. Oh no, it's the garden. So this is where the garden that kind of inspired the rehearsal dinner scene. And there's like a little bit of a thing with the walled garden and the flowers. So there's that. And then the bar, there's something with the dogs too, a little Easter egg there too. A lot of fun stuff goes down in my fictitious bar that was inspired by this really cool bar in my wedding venue. So those are some of the inspiration pictures. And then just quickly, what I hope you guys get out of this book, it was an escape for me to write during, a time where I needed to escape reality, as I know so many of us did during COVID. So I hope it can be a really fun escape for people who need that in their life, once the book is out. But that being said, I do think it's a serious business making people laugh. And I did want to dabble with some interesting themes that I think about a lot, and I think others do too. So, the pitfalls of greed is something that comes up a lot in A Killer Wedding, the complexities of generational wealth. There's a little bit of religious reckoning. And kind of what I find really interesting too is that fine line between good people and bad people, and how our life experience can really kind of impact what side of that line we fall on. So yeah, that's a little bit about A Killer Wedding, and thank you guys so much for having me.
That was great. Yeah, no, I think seeing those photos, not only do you get your money's worth for your photography, but
yeah, I'm going to be doing that for a long time.
I see exactly, like it becomes so clear, this story, which was such a fun read, and it immediately I was like, yes, that's what I was picturing. It's just so beautiful. And I mean, you're right, it's like a little like Devil Wears Prada, but like a little White Lotus. And I'm like, I love especially a mystery, but like any book when we add great wealth in. I just feel like there's so much to dive into, and you do it just so well and a fresh way. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna bring everybody back on.
This was so great. Lainey and Grace and I have been texting each other, like literally saying like, oh my God, I love them all. Oh my God, this is so great. So we have time. We have time to go back and talk some more. First of all, thank you all. I mean, somewhat different and somewhat the same. So these are really interesting books, and I love, you should see the comments. I mean, there's so much in here on Crowdcast, and everybody just says, now I'm hooked. I can't wait to read this. I can't wait to dive into this. And so there's lots and lots of love, and you can see that later. Sam, I want to go back to you for a sec, more than a sec, because I would like you to talk a little bit more, because we don't want to give away too much, but can you talk a little bit more about Rachel, who the character Rachel and what she does at school? And because I don't know that we talked enough about it. I felt like I moved this along too quickly, and I want to make sure that we get that in, because that's at the core of it.
No, I talked too long about the Hudson Valley too.
No, you didn't.
World, but
are you kidding me?
No, one of the things that was really fun about this book was that it has a huge ensemble cast of characters who are all sort of like caricatures in some way. Like they're all kind of archetypical. They all have sort of fun little bits. And so she goes to high school with a lot of these sort of I think calling them archetypical like is selling them short, but they have like recognizable bits. There's the kid with the spiky hair who wears the silver chains, and he's like, sick, you're starting a cult. There's like all these fun characters that I got to really enjoy spending time with. And so that's where a lot of the heart of the book is, that you spend a lot of time in Burnskid High School with Rachel Galloway and her friends as they're reacting to the world. And that was something that I wanted to toy with in this book as well, because Edenville follows two people who are outsiders to Renfield County, who arrive and are like, oh, this is a weird place. And so I wanted to spend time with people who grew up in that place, and how does that affect them? Like, how is your psychology different when you grew up in a cursed place, and so a lot of the book is those interactions that she has where she's like, no, I imagined this, I'm making it up. And all of her friends are like, maybe you didn't, we live in a really weird place, maybe you had like a vision or something, who knows. So that a lot of the tension there in the book was really fun to play with. I don't know how well that answers your question, but is that
well, yeah. No, I think that's great. I mean, how she sort of whiles away her time, and then what she imagines, and then what, like, you've got this time gap. You've got, 2009, 2019, and what happens, what comes to pass. It's just interesting, and it's really kind of, as you say, it's sort of interesting to see how kids are growing up and how they can subscribe to things. And she's saying, no, I didn't, I'm just, I'm just messing around. And it's just really, it's a great hook.
Yeah, it's hard to reel back those stories once you get started, especially with a group of teenagers, and there's a lot of 2009 nostalgia for anyone else who was in high school and listening to Fall Out Boy and whatnot back in the day. So that was a lot of fun to play with in this book as well.
Thank you. That's fun. I just wanted to flesh that out. So thank you so much. Lainey, Grace, do we have, again, comments, questions? And of course, we are going to do the roundup. And sure enough, the question came up, what are you all reading? So that's a good question. And it's really interesting to hear what the authors are reading and loving. So, and you don't have to limit it to one. So, we'll do a round robin of that, but we want to make sure that we get to any questions and or comments. So I'll turn it back over to Lainey and Grace, if there are any.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question of Jade. We open our phone, and if you have any social media, that's all you're seeing is kind of these like content creators saying a lot of words but not really saying anything. And it made me think about what you just said too, about kind of getting to hear from this person's point of view. So we hear, Lola's, her thoughts, her inner workings. When you had that journal 20 something years ago, was that the voice you had, and or did that develop, and how, how did Lola's voice, come to you? Because she's very distinct.
You know what? I would say that was the hardest thing to figure out. Like, I think I knew what I wanted this book to be about. I knew what worlds I wanted to be in. I knew what kind of like larger questions I wanted to think about. But finding this voice, I had never really written anything in first person before. So, The Wangs versus the World, my first novel, it's 5 different points of view, all third, like all close third. And finding Lola's voice, I knew this book had to be in first person. And when I first was writing it, it honestly was just too cute. Like it just felt very, I don't know, everything about it felt like cute in a way that I wasn't that interested in. And I don't know if I can quite pinpoint how accessed it, but I will say it was something that I had to kind of like go back to again and again and again. And I think that 20 years ago when I was writing it, I think I was a more cynical person then. And I think that that voice was, I was writing it in third person, first of all, and I was writing it kind of in a more cynical way. And yeah, I hope this time the voice is both like a little wiser and a little more generous, I'd say. Yeah. And hopeful.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Just some comments that I wanted to read out. So, Joan, someone said, there were really dark times indeed, like COVID and everything, but look at all the wonderful creative material that came out of it. So they're glad that you pushed through
Oh,
and
so
wrote
true.
this wonderful book. And then I just want to, our friend Casey Davis said, Edenville was bonkers in the best way. And so yeah, we have some really fun comments. Everybody's really excited. I do have a question for Kosoko. So, someone said just started it, and I love the wild story. Climbing into paintings would be fun, maybe, which they will read more. But where did this idea come from? And did you hang out at a lot of art museums to draw inspiration?
I knew nothing about art before I started this book. I have been to art museums. I'm from the DC area, so the Natural Portrait Gallery and all of our free art museums. I live in the New York area now, and I hate how much galleries cost and museums cost. It's truly the worst thing ever, which by default makes DC the best city in the world because we have free museums. And so, no, I didn't know much about art. I knew that I wanted it to be like post-impressionist, and I knew that I really fell in love with the screen painting, as you can see, kind of like an inspiration from the cover. And I knew I wanted it to be like really creepy, really macabre, and kind of dark-ish. There's a lot in like the 1800s that's just really creepy. I come from an epidemiology background, so anything with like Jon Snow in the 1800s, our spread of disease, and just occultism from that time really, really interested me. And so it kind of just fit naturally with that time period and with the art of the time period.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay, so question back for Joan. So I know that there's a lot that maybe a book club could dive into with this read. And you've touched on some topics, but I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about like the beauty industry in the book, represented
Yeah.
in the book more.
Yeah, I didn't actually talk about that, but that is another theme in the book, kind of about sort of. I remember reading about like the Johnson and Johnson lawsuit a couple of years ago, and about the talc and the baby powder, and there was a lot that kind of the tip of the iceberg for the whole cosmetic and personal care industry, kind of followed that, where people started reading their labels, ingredients, and asking questions about corporate greed and kind of corruption and what was kind of happening at the top. And so that is a theme in my book. Obviously, the family at the center are these big beauty industry moguls, and there is a lawsuit sort of happening in the background. And I won't give too much away, but it does kind of grapple with, consumer safety and what's sort of happening behind the scenes in that kind of world that's a little bit darker and more sinister than most of us know.
Yeah, it's always hard because you don't want to give too much away, but that was perfect.
Yeah.
A little taste. Yeah.
So we have 9 minutes left. And just more love lots of comments. If there are questions along the way, or also authors, if you have anything that you want to say to librarians or readers or to each other, that's fine. Just think that we're sitting around in the living room, but we can't really touch each other. But we don't want to miss this great part of this program, which is when we get to hear from you about what you like, what you're loving as far as what you're reading, or not, if you're done and it's, it stayed with you, months and months on. Let us know, and Grace will write up the titles and put them in the chat, right, Grace? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, yep. I'm gonna get an Edelweiss catalog ready for everybody. So when you say the titles, just slowly and clearly for me. Especially, sometimes people have like really long titles and then I'm like, wait, was that the next book? So thank you. But yes, I will get them down. So yeah.
All right. So any order it's all good. So whoever wants to start first, there's you want to talk about a book that you're loving or loved, or a couple? Here we are. Sam, you want to go first?
I was gonna say I went first, so I'll just get myself out of the way.
Oh my God. Now, just for that, you can't go first.
Oh no. No, wait. I am really loving Moonflow by Bitter Corella. It's a similar color scheme on the cover to Galloway. And it's about like a lesbian mushroom cult out in the woods. It's really fun. Highly recommend. And I've also been rereading Series of Unfortunate Events kind of before bed, but now that it's summer and the semester is over, I'm kind of reading it like just throughout the day. Those are so fun. I just love the energy and the prose of those books, so it's fun to go back to that. And Moonflow I would highly recommend. So those are my two that I'll say.
Did you get those, Grace?
Yeah, and I definitely need to read Moonflow. That also has a really cool cover. If anybody, when you look at the catalog after, it's a really cool cover.
Sam, are you an Alison Bechdel fan? You read her?
Yeah, she has a new one coming out, doesn't she?
Yeah, it's with us.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I gotta check.
So you just reminded me of it when you mentioned it's called Spent, Spent. And it just popped into my head when you mentioned that book. So actually came out last May 20th. So
Oh geez.
yeah, we'll send one to you.
I would die.
Don't die. Don't die, son. Okay. Anybody else? Who else wants to jump in?
I am reading a book called Shark Heart. It's by Emily, I don't even know how to pronounce her name, Habeck, Habeck. It is a great book. It is exactly what the book title says. It is about a man and a woman who are married, and they are dealing with marital issues and just life issues. And her husband starts to have a pain in his heart, and he goes to the doctor, and they discover that he has a very rare condition that has never been seen before, where slowly he is turning into a great white shark. And he's going to retain the sentience of himself, but he's turning into a great white shark. And it's honestly commentary about relationships and the legacy we want to read behind, and like, who do we love and how do we love and how do we continue to love. It's a little crazy, but it's also incredibly heartfelt. It's not like a whole book about, oh, like the government's going to come and find him and like take him away and they have to go on the run. It's honestly a love story about how do you love somebody when they're changing.
That's something I didn't know I needed, but I need that right now. That sounds so good.
I saw the title one time and I was like, yes. And then I started reading it and I was like, I am not. It really reminds me, if everyone's ever read Our Wives Under the Sea, it's like that, but like more heartfelt and emotional.
Wow.
That was a great pitch too. Now I'm putting all of these on my list.
I know.
It's almost like I do this for a living, like pitching books.
Also good cover. Everyone has to go look at this catalog after. I mean, honestly, I might even just scroll through it. So, but yeah, thank you.
Everybody's going to get it, even the authors. We'll just send it to everybody. Thank you. That's great. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. Uh, well, first, I just this morning I read an article that I bet every single person who is on this chat will love. It was in the London Review of Books. The title was Why Children's Books. It's by someone named Catherine Rundell, Rundell. It was so heartening and it made me want to write children's books and it made me think of, okay, you're gonna think I'm kidding, but one of my I think that truly the best book about the human condition is Sandra Boynton's Hippos Go Berserk. And the sequel just came out recently, Hippos Remain Calm. And honestly, even if there are no children in your life, it's so good. Um, but in the more adult realm, I just finished the book The Wilderness, which is also a Harper book, and by a good friend of mine, Angela Flournoy. And she and I actually wrote a lot of our books simultaneously, sitting across from each other at a coffee shop, at various coffee shops throughout Los Angeles. And that book is just so beautiful, and it is about four friends and just kind of how their relationships ebb and flow throughout a couple of decades. And it's a real masterpiece.
Oh,
That's lovely.
Yeah.
we also put the article in the chat for the watchers as well, so they can check
Great.
that.
And it's not paywalled, so everyone
Even better. Bring it on home, Joan. Oh, you're muted. Can you hear us? You're muted.
Sorry. Last but not least, hopefully, is what I said. But I just finished Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. I don't know if anyone's read that yet, but it was a beautiful, beautifully written book about it's a mystery. Always a sucker for a mystery over here, but it kind of grapples with climate change and is set off a remote island, I think off the coast of New Zealand. And it's about this family a family of caretakers essentially for the island, and a woman washes up on their shore after a shipwreck, and it's kind of them bringing her into their life and her telling them about her past and her sort of experience back on the mainland, I guess, of Australia. And it's a really beautiful story, and I don't want to give too much away, but highly recommend, especially if you've read any of her other work. She's a really brilliant author. And I also recently read Teddy by Emily Dunley, which I think is actually another Harper book. I actually became friends with Emily here in Abu Dhabi, which is crazy. She also lives out here, so we connected. And that's a really fun read. It's set in, I think, 1960s Rome during the Cold War, and it follows this kind of Dallas debutante who's married a political ambassador for the US there. And again, a mystery, a theme with me. I love to read extensively in that genre, but it is gripping and deals with a lot of issues about, that are still facing women today. And I'll leave it at that, but those two have been really fun ones that have stuck with me recently.
That's great.
I got
Great.
those down, so I'll put them in a catalog, and I'll put that in our chat and the public chat.
Perfect. And we'll make sure that the authors get it. We'll email it to you. And of course, anything you want from us, we're happy to send you away. This went so fast. This was so fun. And thank you again, everybody, for taking the time to do this. I know that you are in various ports in the sea, let's put it that way. So we appreciate your taking the time, regardless of what your clock says. And to everybody watching tonight, thanks, and please spread the word. We love bringing authors to you, and we love hearing about the books that they're loving, and we just we couldn't be more appreciative. So Sam Rebelein, Galloway's Gospel, right, goes on sale 9/16, and Jade Chang, What a Time to Be Alive, goes on sale 9/30. Kosoko Jackson, The Macabre 9/9, and Joan O'Leary, A Killer Wedding 9/23. They're all in September. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Is there anything that anybody needs to say before we say goodbye?
Just thank you so much for putting it together and for reading all our books. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Like actually our pleasure.
Yeah,
Like, it's
actually our
like
pleasure.
most
Yeah,
fun.
no kidding, no kidding. Wait, I think Grace, you had a question?
No, I don't think so,
Don't
but
mention, oh, okay, ALA one more time. If anyone's going, go to Library Love Fest .com and you can see everything that we're doing at the conference. And we hope that you can go there. And if you can't, God knows, we'll be here again. We've given you all the dates of the different things we'll be doing. So we hope that you can, we hope you can join. And Sam, I'm sorry, I said Galloway's Ghost, Galloway's Gospel.
The sequel,
Oh.
Galloway's Ghost. Galloway
Oh
2.
my God.
Galloway's back, baby.
I'll give you money. I'll give you money if you call it Galloway's Ghost. It's great to see you. It's great to see you and it's great to meet you all. And we thank you again. So take good care and we'll see you again soon. Good night.
You.